You think you know a party, you think you know a crowd. But imagine this, you are in a narrow alleyway, surrounded by thousands of people. You can't move, you can't breathe, and you realize, with a sickening clarity, that the party has become a pressure cooker. On October 29, 2022, in the heart of Seoul's vibrant Itaewon district, a Halloween celebration turned into the deadliest crowd crush in South Korean history, killing 159 people. The official story? A stampede, a sudden, unpredictable surge of panic. That is the lie. The truth? The biggest mistake was not made by the partygoers. It was made by the system that allowed a predictable disaster to happen. It was a failure of design, planning, and basic human responsibility. This is the story of Itaewon, the alleyway that was designed to crush, and the arrogance that turned a night of fun into a mass grave. To understand the mistake, you have to understand the alley. Itaewon is a labyrinth of narrow streets, but one alley in particular was the perfect choke point. It was a steep, downhill slope, only 3.2 meters wide. The physics of failure. Crowd crushes are not stampedes. They are a failure of physics. When the density reaches 6 to 7 people per square meter, the crowd becomes a fluid. People lose control of their movement. The biggest mistake, the absence of a plan. The annual Halloween celebration in Itaewon was massive, but it had no official organizer. Because there was no organizer, the city and the police claimed they had no legal obligation to implement crowd control measures. The corporate cover-up. The police knew the crowd was coming. They had intelligence reports. They had a manual for crowd crush accident prevention. But they chose to deploy officers to control traffic and crack down on drugs, instead of managing the crowd. The biggest mistake is always prioritizing the optics over the people. They were more concerned with the image of a safe, orderly city than with the reality of a human pressure cooker. The ticking clock. Hours before the crush, emergency calls flooded the police. People were already reporting dangerous overcrowding. 11 emergency calls were made before the disaster. On that night, the crowd reached critical density. A small push at the top of the hill became a wave. The downhill slope turned the wave into a lethal surge. The biggest mistake is the cascade of small errors. The narrow alley was the design flaw. The lack of an organizer was the administrative flaw. The ignored emergency calls were the operational flaw. The government negligence. The police response was slow and inadequate. When they finally arrived, they were not trained for a crowd crush. They were trying to pull people out, not manage the flow. The arrogance of incompetence. The system was designed to protect the system, not the people. The officials who were supposed to prevent the disaster were the first to shift the blame. The crush was not a sudden event. It was a slow, agonizing suffocation. People died standing up, their chests compressed so tightly they couldn't expand their lungs. The ultimate irony, the disaster was entirely predictable and preventable. The city had a manual. The police had the warnings, but the system failed. At every single point of contact, the biggest mistake is the illusion of safety. The belief that a modern, technologically advanced city like Seoul is immune to the failures of basic crowd management. The aftermath was a predictable disaster of blame shifting and cover-up. The official report focused on the unpredictability of the event, conveniently ignoring the 11 emergency calls. The government and the police needed a simple explanation. The crowd, the unruly youth, was perfect. They were the easy target. The truth, as always, is more complex and more damning. The crush was a direct result of a known, ignored, and preventable design flaw. The alley was a ticking time bomb, and the government chose to let it tick. The biggest mistake is the prioritization of administrative convenience over human life. The decision to not designate an organizer saved the city the hassle of planning. The cost, 159 lives. So, what's the moral of the biggest mistake in South Korean history? It's that the most dangerous phrase in the world is, it's not a responsibility. Because when no one is responsible, everyone is in danger. The power to fix it isn't demanding accountability. It's in questioning the no organizer loophole. It's in remembering that the system is designed to protect itself. and only public outrage can force it to protect the people. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the biggest mistake in history that you think is still waiting to happen?